author Aaron.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So who is author Aaron? Because reviewing before we hopped on today, I think it's a shorter list of what you haven't done
Yeah.
versus what you have done in terms of what's gotten to you where you are today in terms of being an entrepreneur, a voice actor, author of Alien books, and all sorts of things. So you're definitely the definition of unconventional.
I appreciate it. I love being an anomaly, though, don't you? I mean, it's like that's the best thing you could be. Um, there are a lot of verbs in my history, so if you're asking who is author Aaron Ryan, I don't even really know. I know that there is an author in there and a voiceover artist in there. Those are my two parallel storytelling tracks. But I've done a lot of things, and I'm actually proud of them. Even the telemarketing, one of the very first jobs you can get, or paperboy, because all of those things contribute to who you are today, the makeup that you have. But I am predominantly, yes, an author at heart. I love storytelling, and a voiceover artist. There's the studio back there, and love being able to tell other people's stories as well.
Was telemarketing like your first job, or when did you do that?
No, paper route was probably the first one. Telemarketing was back in the early 90s, I believe. It was a firm in Bellevue, Washington, and we literally would call businesses across the nation on behalf of local radio stations, and they would buy PSAs. So, PSAs or CSAs, community service announcements. Um, and, of course, you're bothering them during dinner, but you call and you say, hey, it's Aaron Ryan on behalf of KPLC. How you doing? And they always, first question is, oh, what did I win? And you have to tell them, bring them down to earth and apologize that you didn't in fact win anything. In fact, I'd like you to buy something. But that was one of my first formative jobs where I really learned to communicate well, and that
Hmm.
inflamed the desire for voiceovers because I got to do some of those in the studio. So that was formative to the voiceover career for sure.
So being a telemarketer helped you create the skills so that you could start doing voiceover acting. Like, I mean, I don't think people know how hard telemarketing is of a job, and how many people are definitely not the nicest over the phone, or
Right.
nowadays it's over in the comment section on the internet is
Oh,
where people are really really friendly.
yeah, people show their true colors. I cannot run ads for my Christian dystopian saga on Facebook because of the word Christian in it. It's just golly, it invokes all kinds of crazy comments that are just they're absolutely off kilter and not related to the book. So yes, that's difficult to deal with. Telemarketing very hard to deal with, but it really it gave me, I think, an early dose of confidence training in approaching people with something that you love or believe in. I There were people there that was very formative for me as an entrepreneur in not apologizing for your rates. I think that's something that's really easy for entrepreneurs to do. Is it's going to be $600. I'm really sorry that's the cost, but that is what it is, and I hope that's okay. No, I had people that were all around me telemarketing as I was and saying, "Yeah, Jack, for the 2 week package, it's $1,300, and you can make payments after the thing is done. No apologies." I loved it, but it also really did train me because you have to read a voiceover script in every single call. So that trained me to be a better voiceover artist as well.
So between being a telemarketer and going the voiceover acting, what did that transition look like? Because I mean, first off, I mean, how do you even become a voiceover actor? How do you get into that? I mean, everyone knows the movie guy
Yeah.
is like a big one. Who
Don
else is like a
LaFontaine.
yeah? Who else is like a really famous voiceover? I mean, I guess James Earl Jones would be one of the best as Darth Vader.
Yeah. I can't remember the actor's name, but Allstate, the guy who did Allstate, and then you have Red Peters or Red. I think his name is Red Peters. Did a lot of movie trailers. There are all kinds of voiceover artists for all kinds of things. There are so many voiceover artists out there, and they all do a variety of commercial, e-learning, audiobooks. Take your pick. I think the transition for me was slow, but the seed was definitely planted in calling these people all across the nation. And one of them actually said, "Yeah, it sounds great. We'll buy, but only if you get to read." And I was going, oh, uh, hold please. And I go talk to a manager. Can I? He wants to buy, but he wants me to read. Can I read this in the studio? And they said, yeah, absolutely. So I went to the studio, slapped the headphones on, heard my voice, my beautiful, sumptuous voice coming through the speakers and the headphones, and went, I really like this a lot. So it gave me a familiarity with the studio early on.
So it happened by accident.
Kind of, sort of. I don't know that I would
They're
have
like,
taken
"Hey, we're
ownership
gonna
of
make
something
the
on
sale,
accident.
but our condition is you have to do the voiceover."
Yeah, I might not have gotten into it, but for that.
And what was that job for?
Ugh, this is back, again, early 90s. So I don't even remember. I have a 9 and a 6-year-old, so I barely remember what happened, 2 weeks ago. Um, it was a PSA, definitely. I think it was probably a kid code. I was very fond of using the kid code, selling the kid code campaign. It's to prevent
Mhm.
abductions. And so, good sound advice brought to you by Joe's Plumbing. And, for quality plumbing service, call Joe and blah, blah, blah. And whatever business it was, they bought.
Yeah, and that's the thing in especially more smaller organizations. We've all, I don't know if you see these commercials, but we all see those commercials where there's like husband, wife, kids. They're like, "Hey, we'll buy your home cash. We don't care." And I'm just like, I get real cringy on those videos. I'm like, does this really work? Like exploiting your family on a commercial, saying like, "Hey, like we have like 1,000 5-star reviews. We'll buy your house cash, sight unseen." Versus like uh, hiring like a professional, like we were talking about a little bit before this call. Like there's a large company that you do voiceovers for, but you think they're going to go a different direction. So like knowing what voice you're looking for in order to attract the right sort of client to your company.
It's hard for them to choose. I mean, and it's hard for us to know what we struck it rich on, as far as an audition goes. We can come out of a bank of auditions, 20, 30, 40 auditions in there, come back, get ready to process them, send them, and I can come out of there going, oh man, I totally bit the bullet on that audition. And I remember specifically which one it was, and then that's the one I get awarded. And it's like, what? I totally botched that audition, and then I get it. So you never really know. There's no rhyme or reason. They could choose you because your name is Aaron. They could not choose you because their former boyfriend's name was Aaron, and they don't want any Aarons in their life. Um, it just really it depends. My voice could be perfect for a specific product, I think, and they go, no, we're looking for someone who's older. So I try older, and then they were looking for younger. You never know, but the odds are more in your favor the more auditions that you crank out, and I do crank out a lot of auditions, so that helps.
So how does your voice change for these voiceovers? Do you have like a bunch of different voices that you can like just turn on and off at like on command? Are you like Robin Williams? Like you can just like go in and out of it?
Uh, yes, but but ultimately, I try to stick in my wheelhouse. So I love commercial and e-learning primarily. Those are the
Hmm.
projects I do. But if something is in my wheelhouse and I like it, I'll do it. Um, there's nothing like a big commercial project that is a union job. It's going to just pay a lot of money. E-learning though is a steady paycheck because they're doing a lot of modules in that e-learning project, and so they want a uniform voice all the way through. But man, I have to say that as much as voiceovers is rewarding and fun, it just doesn't hold a candle for me to authoring. I love telling their story, but I love telling my own story. They pale in comparison to writing my own books.
Yeah, you've written a lot of different books. I saw you wrote some children's books. I wrote a couple kids books too. So
Oh,
we have
cool.
that in common. What were the children's books that you wrote? Like, what's your favorite one that you wrote?
Yeah, well, probably the first one. So I wrote three. I didn't intend to write three. I actually probably intended to write two, but the second also came by accident. So I was telling my then 8-year-old a story last year, bedtime story, and it was either incredibly moving or incredibly relaxing or incredibly boring because he fell asleep while I was reading it to him. And I went, great. I was making it up, as I went along. But when I was done and he was asleep, I went, wow, Lord, that was really cool. Help me to remember that and note all that down. And so I made the book, had it professionally illustrated, got it, printed, gave it to my oldest son. He loved it. My youngest son came running up and saw, "Oh, that's great, Daddy. Where's mine?"
Ha
And I
ha
was like,
ha ha.
how didn't I see that coming? So then I did a second one for him, and then a third one to make it a trilogy. I think the first one is my favorite.
Ooh, what's the book about and what is it called?
So the first one is called the Book of or the Ring of Truth, and the Ring of Truth has to just do with being honest. It has to do with this little boy who is fighting battles all the time because he's told lies about himself. You're a bad person, right?
Mm,
And kids can internalize things that they've done, and they can internalize their actions mistakenly as their identity. I've done this bad thing, so I'm a bad person. Man, that's so toxic and dangerous for kids. So we're very intentional with our 9-year-old about saying, we might be mad at what you did, but we are not mad at who you are. So the ring of truth has to deal with that notion of just internalizing your actions as your identity. They're two different things. And then the second one is the sword of joy, because my second son is an entertainer and
mm-hmm.
he likes to perform when the older brother is in trouble. um, when Brendan's in trouble, Asher likes to, do a song and dance and look at me, everything's okay, and like make everything better. And we want him to know that if you are sad, it's okay to be sad. You don't have to put on a face. It's
Mm-hmm.
being, authentic with your emotions. So those are the two. And then I wrote a third one that was basically they're both of them and their weapons, but now you need a stronger weapon because here comes an evil spirit. So they turned out great. I'm proud of them.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I wrote 3 kids books. I don't think I've sold a ton of them, but they're out there. And that's like the first thing to doing anything. You just got to like put it out there, and that's the hardest part. But essentially, you just have to like keep going, keep creating, keep making things because you never know when it's gonna take off. It could be one book, it could be all the books. You don't know.
Yeah. So this one, I actually wrote in November of 23. I wrote the first paragraphs of Dissonance Volume 1 Reality, which is my series opener for the Alien Invasion saga.
Hmm.
I really didn't intend to write a trilogy at that point. I wanted to write, a single novel, but it ballooned quickly into a trilogy that then demanded 2 prequels and a sequel. And so it turned into a 6-book hexalogy. I actually have a version where it's an 8x10 version that's all 6 books in one. And this is my pride and joy. Dissonance, the Alien Invasion Saga, is my pride and joy. Volume 1 has been adapted for the screen and is currently being pitched to streaming networks, including like Legendary Studios. So I'm super, super, super hopeful. Um, and you're right. I had to put it out there. I had to try. I have to create. I had to put it out there and see what would happen, and turned into a best-selling award-winning series.
How many books do you think you wrote before that one?
Well, I know I wrote at least 6 voiceover books that were all either a combination of business/satire. I abandoned a project in the early '90s called the Omega Room. I wrote, the Electric Boy in 7th or 2nd grade. Um, and then I wrote a compilation of poetry called Glimmerings in the '90s that's no longer available, just out of print. And then I was working on an autobiography, as a personal project of catharsis. So maybe uh, 8 or 9, if
Mhm.
that count is, holds up to what I just said.
Sounds like that
9 or
was
10,
over a long time period too.
several decades. Yeah. I voiceovers, the career is taking a beating because of things like AI, the economy, the SAG-AFTRA strike, um, underbidding colleagues, lowballing clients. It's all corrosive to the industry. That really caused me to pivot and go back to writing fiction, because as a voiceover artist, I wrote and published 6 books that are largely satirical, which has a lot of elements of fiction to it.
Mhm.
And I was like, what can I do that's creative? I have to create. Um, I went back and just started writing in the fall of 23. And I published, I think, 14, 15 books last year, some of which were recycled old stuff, some of which were things I just had never published. But published all 6 of the Dissonance series, published a 9/11 historical fiction novel, a book of poetry, um, several other things. Just it was a really productive creative year last year.
So when you're creating these ideas, even if they're not gaining traction, how do you keep yourself creating even if you're not seeing any sort of results? That's the hardest part.
That's a great question. Results are not the motivation for me. The impetus has to be something I think so much deeper and partially intangible. It has to be a compelling force within you that just says, I have to create. That is, your series is called Unconventional Money Moves. It's unconventional. I'm unconventional that way, and that I'm not writing necessarily for profit. I would love, absolutely love, for these to be paying my mortgage instead of voiceovers. Someday that'll happen. I believe it. But it has to come from that that force that's deep inside you that says, I just have to create. You put it out there. You hope that people buy it. Some are going to do better than others. Some are going to drift into obscurity. Both have to be okay. Both outcomes have to be okay, and you have to be able to continue to create. Now, I am in a little bit of a writer's block, although I'm slowly emerging out of that. Writing my novel, The Slide. It's been a
Mhm.
story that's been hard for me to wrap my head around, but it's slowly coming along, and the projects are all different.
What has you stuck?
I'm not in love with the story as much as I love Dissonance, as much as I love the End saga.
Mhm.
It's very compelling, and I've got a great story in the works, but I have to kind of. What happens for me as a writer is I can plod along, and then, you know, um, if I set my teeth into something where I'm like, oh, this is good, I just become unstoppable. It's like Juggernaut. You can't let him get any momentum because he's unstoppable. And I will plow through a book. Um, I wrote Dissonance Volume 1 Reality in 3 weeks, 21
Mm.
days. Um, one of those, The End, I believe, the first one I did in a similar time frame. Um, Once I get started, if it's something I really care about, it's just going to take off, and I believe that'll happen here eventually.
Yeah, I mean, in order to be creative, you have to almost accept when you're not able to be creative because it comes and goes. You can't
Yeah,
just like be on all the time.
yeah.
But
I
it's
don't think
frustrating.
it is. I don't think it's healthy to be on all the time. I mean, you have to give yourself that moment to come up for air, to untether. I mean, if you're doing these deep dives in these books, well, you're going to need air. So, I do love being able to see a book finished and do the finishing touches on it, and create it and publish it and see it go live, and then be able to tell people about it. That's so rewarding as an author. But the moments in between the peaks, the valleys, if you want to call them that, those are so important for balance.
Mhm.
We just went to Seaside, my family and I, this past weekend, and I blew off a trade show that I had paid a registration for. Um, it was $250. I wanted to go. I apologized to them and said I won't be able to. Number of reasons. We'd had a tumultuous week. I booked it for the day of my birthday, and I shouldn't have done that because I needed to be with my family. And the weather wasn't going to be all that nice. So I said, our family needs this right now. I chose my family over this trade show, and that was my coming up for air. That was my valley, in between the peaks, and you need that. You really do.
Well, I mean, over time, the valleys get higher.
Yeah, I
So, I
believe
mean,
that.
you could be in a valley, but I mean, it's like, 20 years ago, it's down here. And then in the future, your valleys are up here. So, I mean, the highs get higher and the lows also get higher along with
Maybe
it.
it's maybe it becomes more of a ravine, and then maybe a trench, and then a ditch, and then it's more leveled out that way. Sure.
Yeah. And then most people don't even publish anything.
Yeah,
Did
I'm
you have
working
a
on.
fear of publishing, like putting your things out there in the beginning?
I think for the very first one, it was like I don't know what I'm doing really, but I had done them informally on different sites. I think one was Lulu. There's a site called Lulu or something like that. Um, Way back when, for a book of poetry that I had written and a book of poetry that my wife with her poems I wanted to make for her.
Mm.
But I think it was called Lulu something. Anyway, that was a little intimidating, but KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, has a fairly streamlined process for publishing and good to go templates for whatever book size and page count you have, and format, hardcover, paperback. I don't get intimidated anymore about that process. I look at it as a great challenge, and I'm excited to see when it's all done and go, booyah! Here's another great book that's released by Aaron Ryan. I love to announce those.
Yeah, that's something a lot of people don't realize is how Amazon, I mean, they originally started in books. However, they've given people like you and myself the ability, if we have something we want to put out there, we can do it at a very reasonable rate.
Well, absolutely. And KDP, Kindle, is free. I mean, you don't
Mhm.
expend any money to create that, unless you're talking about you don't have any graphic design skills, so you had to pay a graphic designer for your cover, or you pay for your editor. Yes, okay, maybe there's marginal investment to that end, but it doesn't cost anything to self-publish. If you have the wherewithal to do graphic design, which I do, I design my own covers now. If you have an editor, if you want to do the editing yourself, then you're expending zero money. I don't recommend editing your book yourself. Get an impartial editor, of course, but it doesn't cost anything to self-publish.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're really serious about something, it's worth investing to have others take some of the workload off you. I remember I was attempting to get the first one on Kindle, and I was like, "Oh, your bleed area is off. Your bleed area is off." I probably spent like 6 months trying to get it right, and I was like, "You know what? Let me see if I could pay someone to do it." And it was like
Yeah,
$50. I just
yeah,
didn't think about it. You're just like in this zone of like, I'm doing this, I'm finishing this from beginning to end. And then
right.
6 months go by. I'm like, you know what? Let me just see if someone could do it. And it's like, pay $50. And then it was like, oh, wow, I could have done that 6 months ago.
I know. I've been there and I've done that. You just hit on a term that I think a lot of people miss out on, whether they are just simply an author, and I mean no disrespect there. They are a hobbyist versus like an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And for the overwhelming majority of the lion's share of these people who try and fail or never try because they're just, imposter syndrome, analysis paralysis, whatever, uh, they look at it as an expense rather than an investment.
Mhm.
Um, the investment that you made, this $50 that you made to have somebody correct the layout for you and fix the bleed, was an investment towards an end. But an expense is people whining and going, oh, if I have to spend this money, okay, I will, fine. An investment is like, no, no, this is absolutely imperative for my success. Expenses are short term, investments are long term. There's a huge mindset difference for a lot of people in whatever creative pursuit you're heading into. And I think the
Yeah.
people who are willing to invest are the ones who are going to make that unconventional money move in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, I see it all the time. I mean, I talked to someone just the other day. They're like, well, I don't see why I would spend this money on this. I was like, well, it's a one-time investment. It had to do with their taxes and setting up a tax strategy. I'm like, well, how many more years are you going to be doing your taxes from now until Judgment Day? So let's
Right.
just say you do your taxes for another 30 years. It comes down to less than $20 a year just to make sure that you have a strategy that is in place. But
Yeah.
people don't see it that way. They just, you know, I mean, with people who have like credit card debt, but they don't want to spend a few $100s to have someone help guide them. It's like almost like self-sabotage. It is self-sabotage,
Yeah.
but people don't see it that way.
I think the limitation, the mindset limitation where you kind of, you're your own worst enemy is I can't come up with $300. Well, yes, you can. I mean, it's really a mindset difference, and I deal with it with my 9-year-old all the time. You can do anything you put your mind to. Will it take a little while for some of those things? Sure, but in the end, it's kind of like that question that is asked, of so many dreamers. What do you wish you will have done 10 years from now? Do it now. Start now. In 10 years, what will you wish you have done? Do it now. So you're laying that groundwork right now, and that's an investment of your time, your resources, your money, your patience, whatever. But invest that if you really believe in this dream.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've been, I see a lot of like I'm in the financial space. I see a lot of people doing learning about this, learning about that. And I'm like, well, when it comes down to anything, whether you're investing, doing voiceovers, writing books, uh, it all comes down to mindset. And those that have like a really good mindset, no matter what they do, they always seem to get ahead of the other people that have like a bad mindset, even if the person is more talented or better than them,
Yeah.
because the mindset is such a tricky thing.
Yep. Yeah. What is that phrase? Obstinacy comes from there's obstinacy and then there's determination. One comes from a strong will, the other one comes from a strong won't. And I see far too many people like that. It's like, yeah, yes, you can do this. I work with my kids on it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, kids are crazy. I mean, my daughter will be 2 next month, and it's,
Mm.
like, crazy how just, like, rephrasing things makes such a difference on their psyche. Like, when she falls down, I'll be like, "What do we do when we fall? We get back up." I was just
Is
like,
that that's
Batman.
Batman? Ah, Batman Begins. I
Exactly.
knew it.
Yeah. So it's like, what happens when we fall, Mr. Wayne or
I was just
Bruce?
gonna say, hopefully you don't accidentally call her Master Wayne.
I definitely don't. So just like little things like that. I mean, it's crazy how like just making that slight adjustment makes a world of difference. Every time she falls, like, I'm okay.
Yeah, I know. I love it. I love it. Our kids did that as well. Like, I'm okay. That instant self-assessment.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, cool.
So with your books, your voiceovers, Paperboy, telemarketing, everything else that you going on, where are you at now? Are you like working on promoting the book? Are you looking to get like published? I mean, you have something coming up with possibly getting picked up on some streaming services.
Yeah. Well, that's the greatest thing is just you're always promoting your books as an author. You're always promoting your books, even if you're traditionally published. So you're constantly in that state of promoting. I just released volume 2 in a series, and you don't typically promote that one as heavily because that's the second one in the series, and
Hmm.
people will like, "Well, I don't know what the first one is," and so you want to promote the first one heavily. Um, so I just finished that. When the third one is done, I'll promote that series, the entire series, heavily. But you're constantly marketing. What I love to do is I do these vendor markets and these craft fairs and trade shows on the weekend. I have one coming up this Saturday, a real big one coming up the following weekend. And I love going out there and just and being in the trenches, talking with people about my books and having them buy them because number one, no one's going to be a better enthusiast about my books than me. So being front and center and saying, yes, I'm the author and I wrote this and I'd love for you to partake of it. You get way more money per book sale when you sell direct like that. So that's a huge motivation as well. Um, but yeah, you're just constantly marketing and constantly jotting down ideas for new books and constantly chipping away at the current WIP and moving it closer to the finish line.
Work in
Work in progress.
progress.
Correct.
I was like, whip.
The current whip.
That's awesome. So you're basically like going like physically going to shows, and I think it'd be interesting to talk about because you alluded to it a little bit earlier. How is AI affecting what you're doing in the voiceover world? Because someone like me, I could just go on and like almost create anything without having any. Well, you have to have some skill, but not as much
Yeah.
skill.
Yeah, the sad thing is that for so many years, granted, Chat GPT and OpenAI really came to prominence in spring of 2023, as I recall. And before that, there was a lot of speculation from the upper crust mucky mucks in the voiceover sphere saying, "Don't worry about it. Yes, it's getting better, but I predict that this was going to go away." But Steve Ballmer poo-pooed the iPhone as the CEO of Microsoft and said, this is nothing. We all use Blackberries here. And we know how wrong he was. Apple became just the pioneer. It took everything by storm. AI is doing the same thing, and it's doing it negatively. So I have lost great clients, long-time clients to AI. I've lost long-time contracts and projects to AI. I know colleagues who are no longer doing voiceovers because of it. It has eroded the industry pay scale, because why would they pay a hardworking voiceover artist $3,200 for a national TV commercial that runs national TV for a year, when they could just simply buy a license for Respeecher or Speechalo or Speech Ocean or whatever those crappy software are, and pay $49 one time, you know? And they think that that voice suffices, and that's a connective voice, and people are buying it. It's really kind of, you listen to TikTok reels, when you watch the reels and you listen to the narration, it's it's not human. It lacks the idiosyncrasies, the nuances, the humanity that people naturally have. And AI is incredibly destructive to the voiceover industry. I've seen it firsthand. Our
Mm.
income's gone from here to here.
So how do you plan to use AI in order to bounce back?
I don't. I'm a staunch anti AI guy. Save humanity. Hashtag save the humans. Um, I'm not going to use AI. I will never use AI. In fact, in any of my books, you'll find in the beginning note on AI, and it is basically a disclaimer to let everyone know never once have I used AI in the creation of my books, nor will I. And I urge other authors to, steer clear of it. Idea generation, no problem. Use AI all you want for stuff like that. But there are far too many people using AI to write their entire book, and then something like Midjourney to create the cover. They slap their name on it. They throw it up on Kindle, and you didn't create a thing. It's really brazen, and it dilutes the literary marketplace. I'm staunchly opposed to AI.
I think it shouldn't be a replacement. However, it could be a useful tool, like you were saying, in terms of like, hey, like I'm thinking about this. Could you help me with like an idea? But in terms of just like using it to get you from the beginning of the alphabet to the end of the alphabet, and
Yeah,
then just claiming that you created it, I don't know. I don't. I think there's something nice of when you know like something came out of someone's brain and onto paper or into
yeah,
a catchy song.
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. I mean, that's the truth. How many times when you call a company and you get stuck in phone jail, do you just want a human being? It's the same thing. We want human connections. We don't. You can always tell. You're like, is this? I think this is a robot voice. You're instantly turned off. They're getting better. That's the problem. But I think just ultimately, now let me say this. I've seen videos where people have used, I don't know how they create them or what they've done, whatever, but people who get their legs, blown off in like Afghanistan. And now medically, somehow through the use of AI, they've created artificial legs and prosthetics. And, the person can use those, and they're smart. Everything's smart nowadays, and whatever. But they're all smart legs and they're AI. And oh my gosh, that's cool. That person can walk again. I think that's very cool. But when it is designed and used and implemented to replace creative human beings, I think that's a tragedy. I think it's an absolute tragedy, because as a believer in God, He's the creator. He endowed us with a huge ability to create. And I don't want to give that up. I don't want to renounce that creator's gift of creation. I want to hold that fast. That's just me, though.
Yeah, it's definitely. I definitely use it. Uh, However, there's times where I have to like catch it because it'll be wrong, and a lot of people are just using it, assuming it's always going to be right, and that's going to get people into a lot of trouble. And when you get into trouble, or if you show something that's not your work and claim that it is your work, and then people find out it's not your work, now you've just lost all credibility.
Absolutely. And even more dangerous when you use it and you create misinformation. I love watching nature videos, and I don't know how I saw stumbled upon something, but now there are all these videos, and there was a tsunami that happened recently, but now there's these videos that people just create of these tsunamis washing into cities and killing all these people off, and they're not even reacting. They're walking about, going about their business. The tsunami would be entirely visible from their vantage point, and yet they're just they're bots walking along, happy day shopping, and then they get obliterated by this tsunami. What is the point of that? It's misinformation, some people are um, some people are naive enough to believe that and go, "Oh no, those poor people," and it's like this is fake. How do you not see that? It's I hate the misinformation aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully things can. Yeah. I mean, it comes down to everyone. You have to educate yourself so you can decipher what's real and what's not real. But that becomes more and more challenging as things get smarter, as the AI gets better, and it becomes more difficult. But there are times where I'm watching people's videos. I'm like, this doesn't look like a person to me.
Yeah, there's 6 fingers on their right hand, and it's not Count Rugen or whatever his name is. Yeah,
Yeah.
they never get the fingers right.
Yeah. The fingers are definitely hard ones when it comes to AI or anything.
Yeah.
So, in addition to author, blogger, speaker, voiceover, and everything that you've done, uh, not including being a father or a husband, because that's probably number one or close to it. Out of everything that you've done professionally, what have you been most proud of what you've accomplished?
Authoring by far. I mean, every day of the week and twice on Sunday, it's authoring. Yeah, I like I said, there's nothing that I've done that holds a candle to authoring. I love leaving legacy, number one. And every career that I've had as a wedding videographer, as a video transfer guy, media production, those all create products that are legacy based. I also used to record people, elderly folks telling their life story, and then you could give that to their children and grandchildren. That's legacy. I transferred and preserved tapes on disc and file format. That's legacy. Wedding videography, never again, by the way. But covering those and preserving that special day, that's legacy. Writing stories is legacy. And I love leaving a legacy of look how much this guy created. You know, I have at least 300 wedding clients, so there's 300 projects there, but tons of video transfer and video capture projects, 32 books. I'm working on 33 and 34. I love being able to look back and see the trail of creativity behind me. I'm very proud of that, and a lot of that is authoring.
Yeah, I mean, most people don't write one, and you plan on keep going and going, which definitely makes you very unconventional. Before I let you run, I have to ask one small favor to close out our episode. Could you do a quick voiceover to end out the episode for us?
Well, I'm reading from a script, so I never know what I'm supposed to say.
Are you able to
Um,
freestyle something?
oh, sure. I mean, uh, my work in progress right now, the slide that I'm working on, and I can read some of that as a little teaser. Um, I don't know if anybody will remember it when it comes out, but anyway, I'll read some of that if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I typically will adopt. This is for Dissonance, by the way. It's a very war weary, 16 years post apocalyptic situation. The guy is a 23-year-old military guy, military sergeant, and he's been living underground as they all have been, hiding from Gorgon. So it's very, he's world weary, and he's talking like this. So he's got kind of a lower timbre with a little bit of grit and gravitas to it. So this will probably be something like that. But this is an excerpt from the slide. It was high time for a difficult conversation. AARO head Dr. Ron Sikorsky was a young man stern beyond his years, supremely focused on the all domain anomaly resolution office's purpose to protect our skies and keep Earth safe. His namesake was bound to the helicopter business as an industry leader, but that didn't mean he was one. It was clear our dear Ronnie had his hands full already and didn't want to be bothered with any more or any new phenomena. Sorry to ruin your day, Ronnie, I thought, but there's incoming that you really might want to take a look at before it lands on your head. You've triple verified telemetry? He asked Dina. Yes, sir, we have, she replied. He just stared at the screen. Damn it, he finally groaned. DOD will have my head now that you've let this get close to Earth, folks. I hope you're happy. Mr. Sikorsky, with all due respect, I began. This thing just literally appeared 2 days ago, verified by Mr. Farragut and Ms. Jensen. Look at the speed at which it's traveling, sir. This isn't a slow-moving, traditionally trackable blip, sir. It's moving at over 1/10 the speed of light. By the look on his face, that defense meant nothing to him. He rubbed his hands through his hair feverishly and then blew out hot steam. All right, keep me apprised. This is not good, folks. Anyone else running reciprocals and checking your readings? That's correct, sir, I said. Typical ones: DSN, NRAO, VLAs, GODDS, Discover, EHT. I rattled off, reading Dina's list from earlier that I'd requested she update. Any idea on point of intersection? Not until we have confirmed with Tidbin Bala in 2 hours. Who's your contact? There you go. There's one page.
Awesome, Aaron. We'll see everyone next time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It was fun.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate it. Any opportunity to talk about books, voicing, whatever. It's always great.